Welcome to the Mac Power Users. I'm David Sparks and joined by your friend and mine, Mr. Stephen Robles. Stephen, what are you doing this week that's interesting?
Oh, David, it's a lot of interesting things going on. I have an app. It's been approved
Yes,
for the App Store, and we're going to talk about it, the entire process. I'm very excited. I'm very
that's the
excited.
answer. You are becoming an app developer, crazy or not.
I listen. I've really struggled. Like, I'm not a developer because I don't know a single line of code, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, we're going to get back to this because in my robot course, there are a lot of emerging app developers. We are
Yeah,
entering a new era, and I want to talk about that as part of this overall conversation.
yeah.
But before we get into all that, we got some housekeeping.
We got some housekeeping. I wanted to do a quick survey. And so if you are listening, watching, down in the show notes, you'll find a link. It is a 2-question survey, anonymous. It'll take you a couple seconds. We just want to hear from you as the Mac Power Users audience. One, what topics would you like to hear about in the future? What are some things you're passionate about? What would like to learn more about? And the second question, what have been some favorite recent episodes, could be the past 6 months or year, that you really enjoyed? Because we want to do more of that kind of stuff. And so we'd appreciate your response. Like to hear from
Oh,
you.
yeah. Just take a minute, gang. We would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
That led you down an interesting avenue of research, didn't it?
It did. So I've had access to the stats for Mac Power users, and it is so surprising to me where people listen. Because in my other shows, the split is usually 70% of the audience listens in the Apple Podcasts app. And then Overcast is usually a distant second, like 16% are the numbers for one of my other shows. For Mac Power users, 80% of the audience listens in Overcast. And I'm sure that might only be rivaled by Accidental Tech Podcast, where Marco is the developer of Overcast and hosts the show.
Yeah.
But that was super surprising to me. And so for that, we just wanted to ask real quick, if you could, you're probably listening in Overcast right now, jump over to Apple Podcasts for just a moment. And when you get a chance, leave us a 5-star rating and review, because most of you are not there. So totally understand why you would not have left a review, because you don't listen there. But
Yeah.
we just wanted to ask that as well.
Yeah. It helps us out with Apple, and it doesn't take long. We do really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Tell me about your story, because you have also had some harrowing things going on.
Yeah, I want to just check in real quick. This isn't related to today's topic, but in my house we had a leak. 30-year-old pipes, they're starting to fail. But my wife said, "Hey, how come your fancy sensors did not catch that leak?" And that's because the sensors weren't where the leak happened. It was a pipe leaked in the ceiling and it dripped through. And of course, I did not have a leak sensor sitting on top of the kitchen table where it dropped through. So, as great as these sensors are, they still need to be where the water goes. And in my case, it didn't work. So, just be careful.
Are you going to reconsider where you place leak sensors, or get more to place around?
No, I mean, if you want to hear the whole story, I mean, my house, it's a tract home. They used the cheapest possible copper pipe. After 30 years, it's failing. I'm probably going to just replace it all. But the leak sensors are in the right places. They're under the sinks. They're by the toilets. They're
Right.
near the refrigerator and the washer and dryer, all the places that leaks often occur. But I'm actually very vigilant about that. Like, I switched out on all the valves and all that stuff several years ago. So we don't have, old valves that often are the cause of leaks. But if it's a pipe in the wall, I don't know how many leak sensors you'd need, to solve that problem.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's why I do like the Eve Water Guard, which is like the rope leak sensor. So rather than just being a coin style
Yeah.
single point, you can kind of put the rope along. But again, you don't want all that stuff around your kitchen and on counters. So you're not gonna
yeah.
put it in places like that.
And it was, you hear the story all the time, right? You're out of town and you come home, your house is flooded. We actually were out of town when it happened, but it just happened to be my daughter was staying at our house because of reasons, and she saw it, and she called me freaking out, and I explained to her how to turn off the main, which also reminded me I need to buy one of those main valve shut-off HomeKit devices. They make devices now that you can. It's like a little arm you can attach to the main valve. And the way my main valve works, I think it would probably work just fine. And I think I need to get one of those so I can remotely turn the water off if I want to in the future.
Yeah, and I'll put a link to a couple that I know of. I know YoLink makes one, and there's like a Bulldog one but you can connect it to all your smart home stuff where if a water leak is detected, it will shut off the water to your entire house. So you can do that.
Yeah, so that works, but if the leak is in the wall in a pipe, your water leak sensors aren't going to probably help you.
Yeah.
If anybody has any ideas, let us know. But I guess you buy like 5 dozen water leak sensors and
just put them,
stick them all
put
over
them everywhere. Well, anyway, we'll see what happens. So let us know if listeners, if you have any ideas. And also on More Power Users today, by the way, we're going to talk about more offline experiences, not leaks in houses. But I had an interesting weekend with some emotions about whether I was capturing photos of what was happening. And I don't know. I just want to get into that later and get David's thoughts on it too. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was at a family reunion. That's the reason why I was out of town, and so many people watched the whole reunion through the little screen on their iPhone. I was thinking, this is nuts, But let's talk about it.
We'll get to that. And one last thing before we get to the main topic, I just wanted to share. We had a listener send us a picture. This is Anthony, who listens to Mac Power Users, and that's us on his car, just listening to us while he's driving. So it's always fun to see where people listen and watch Mac Power Users.
Yeah, I remember when we first started the show, Stephen, somebody wrote me. I was talking about Velcroing your phone to your dashboard. I mean, this is very early days, right?
Sure.
And somebody wrote in who was in Kenya, and he says, well, the roads are too rough here. If I Velcro it, it'll just bounce off. And the thought of someone in Kenya listening to Mac Power Users and driving around, to me was it just
it's amazing.
It was very eye-opening. Like, oh wow, actually there are people outside of this little room that hear these conversations.
100%. And I was poking around in our analytics, like I said earlier, seeing all the countries that we are listened to, and it's amazing. So thank you to everyone listening everywhere around the world. It's
a good reminder for us. We try not to be U.S. centric with this topics we discuss, but it's a good reminder that we've got people all over the place.
Well, and our main topic should be available worldwide when this episode drops.
Yeah.
Because I felt the need to build yet another task app.
Yeah.
So before we get into what I built and why I built it, what do we currently use? David, what do you currently use when it comes to tasks and project management?
Yeah. So the task landscape is something that I think everybody's always interested in. And I have a long history with OmniFocus, the Omni Group's task management app. In the early days, there was just no good task managers on the Apple Mac platform. This is before iPhone. And then some started to show up, but somebody made a thing called Kinkless GTD, which they built off of Omni Outliner. The Omni Group saw how popular that was, so they decided to make their own task manager. I started using OmniFocus in early beta, and I've been a dedicated fan since. I think they do just a fantastic job. But earlier this year, I decided to really dig in with that robot course, and part of it was I felt like I needed to be able to tell people taking the course if they wanted to manage their tasks using artificial intelligence and the text-based system that course teaches. So I moved everything into Obsidian about January, and the way I did it was I made an individual text file for every task. And then I created metadata fields in Obsidian. You can have metadata or what they call front matter. So you could say, what's the status? What's the project? The usual metadata you have. And one nice thing I discovered is I could add whatever metadata I wanted. So that taxonomy has increased. And then I have the robot kind of manipulate that and put lists together for me. And that's worked great. But honestly, I miss OmniFocus. I do think having the robot involved with managing tasks, especially when I have a lot of things that I would almost call ideas, not necessarily tasks, the robot involvement with that is useful to help me find things that need to get purged, or when I research something to add it easily. But on the iPhone and iPad, it's really difficult to manage tasks when you've got them all in individual text files in Obsidian. Project management as well kind of works on the same principle. Sometimes it won't be called a task. I call them endeavors because I'm fancy. But right?
Objectives.
Yeah, I do really like the idea of using words and plans that motivate you. It's like Daisy and I have been on this serious health kick as she's recovering from her heart attack, and we call it Project Long Game. How are you doing on Project Long Game? It makes you
good.
feel better.
Yeah, that's good.
So I call them endeavors because I'm silly that way. But I have also projects that are managed. So I've got this kind of intricate system I've built with one record per task. As I do it, I am in the process of starting to think about, okay, how does OmniFocus get folded into this? Omni wrote their own automation language called OmniJS. So it is very friendly to incorporation into this process. I just got so busy with everything I was doing with the robot course and now the circle transition that I hadn't had time. But now suddenly time is starting to open up, and that's going to happen. So my stack will be, I think, at the end of the day, a mixed OmniFocus kind of obsidian database of tasks that I work from. The bigger question for me is, how do you manage tasks? And I could do a whole show on it, but I'm going to give you the short version here. You okay with that?
Yeah,
because I've been teaching task management for a long time.
Oh, no,
when I was a lawyer, I had like 150-ish clients, so I had many lists for everybody and some of them, if you didn't do a thing, you got sued for malpractice, so obviously it was important.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to let them down. But now my life's a little easier. But the thing I've kind of realized for me, the real secret sauce to task management to me is the big list and the little list. And I'm not inventing anything here. A lot of people talk about this over time. But the big list for me is kind of like the bank or the full list of ideas and concepts and things I'm working on. And then the little list is the thing that you do day to day. Because if you try to work from the big list, and I've tried to do that, get OmniFocus loaded up and then get, whittle down a smaller list from that, I just find the cognitive overload of seeing the big list gets overwhelming. So a couple of years ago, I started going analog for the last bit. And I use Field Notes notebooks. You can get those pretty cheap. I also use these UGMonk cards. This is today's list, and you can see I got like 7 items on it. But I go through the big list, and then I write down a couple things on the little list, and that's the true task management for me, Stephen, is a piece of paper on my desk.
Okay. And I always wanted to be a real paper guy. I don't think it's ever going to come to fruition.
Yeah.
But that's fascinating. One, I have tried so many different apps because for about 7 years, I led a creative team that was also responsible for supporting a larger team of about 60 people.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of project management, and I used all of the big apps. I've used Asana in a workplace. I've used Trello. I used GetFlow, which I'm not sure if it's still around, Monday, all of them.
Yeah.
And now that I'm just me, in business for myself, I try to have a system, like you're saying, for the things that are ideas long term, for the things that are short term, and then like medium term.
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
I actually have words for that too.
Oh, what's that?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, the immediate term is bench, like as a woodworker. It's on my bench right now. And then the short term is the shelf. And then the long term is an idea. And that word term idea is very intentional because an idea is not something I've agreed to do. It's just an idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I guess I like to compartmentalize my tasks in 3 different places. The first are work tasks, which might be do the post Mac Power users. That's a task that recurs every Friday. I make sure the YouTube's ready to go, the notes. And tasks that are work-related and due on a certain date, I use Things for all of that. Yeah. And when I open the Things app, it's only tasks that I am accomplishing today for work.
So that's your daily list. Okay.
So that's my daily list for work task, and that's always in Things.
Yeah.
And then I actually use reminders for the same thing but personal, because OmniFocus has this feature, and I never got into the OmniFocus flow, but when I have my personal tasks, like the garbage goes out every Tuesday evening. And so that is in my reminders as a recurring task, but I don't want to see those tasks when I'm working during the day.
Yeah.
And so I separate the personal tasks that are very time sensitive and not something that are work related, and I put that in reminders, and that I don't look at. I just basically wait for the notification when tasks like that arise. The water softener every 60 days or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I have reminders, personal tasks, things, my work tasks, but then I have my video work, which is a large part of my day and week is the creative process of doing videos.
Yeah.
And that has the paradigm that you were saying. There's like the brainstorming and ideas, there's the up next, and all of that.
Yeah. There's a whole pipeline. Yeah.
The whole pipeline. And that is the one place where Kanban board style project management has really resonated for my workflow. And I'm just going to ask you now so we could just decide how we're saying it. Is it Kanban or Kanban? How do you say that?
I'm going to say Kanban, but I don't know what the proper pronunciation is. That's the way I always say it. But I like you, I'm a big fan of Kanban. Like I've written stuff into the Obsidian database to give me Kanban views because there's something very appealing to the drag a card across the screen thing as you go through the process.
And that's exactly what I do for my videos. And so I have a reminders list in Kanban view, which if you didn't know, you can go to reminders settings on your Mac, and there is, like, you can enable Kanban view for a list.
They don't call it Kanban, though. What do they call it? They have a different name for it, don't they?
They call it, let's see, if you right-click a list, you can, I'm not sure. I thought it's like column view.
Column view.
I think it's called
that's
column
it.
view.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. So you do have to enable that. But once you can set a list as a Kanban view or column view in reminders. You can't switch back and forth, unfortunately. So once you have a list in that view, it's kind of set there. And so I have one reminders list set as that for my video projects. And I kind of just have it open all day on my Mac because I'm either going to put ideas in there or I'm going to work on something there. And my columns are brainstorming, and I have a bunch of ideas there that I might work on one day. I have a soon column, which is like, it's an idea, but I might do sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I have a column for shorts because I'm doing shorts and reel content, so that's a column. Up next is this is an imminent video that I need to work on next or this week even. And then I have a completed column where I keep videos there if they had a sponsor and they haven't paid me yet. So I move these cards from the soon or brainstorming to the up next. I work on it. I have little nomenclatures for, like, I'll put a money emoji in the title of the reminder so I know that that's a sponsored video. And then once it's done and published on YouTube or wherever, I'll put it in the completed section and leave it there until there's a sponsor. Yeah,
and I've experimented with some Kanban apps. I want to talk about Trello in a minute. I've also done it in reminders, and I found that an excellent way to do what you just described in reminders is just to make it a full screen app and keep it to the left, so you just swipe over to it and you can jump in and out of it. Have you ever tried that?
Yes, I've done that, but there's a lot of little nitpicks that I have about it, which is why I was prompted to build my own. But I will say with that, reminders has been really good for all of that, because if you jump into the details of a reminder, you can do things like add notes, you can add a URL, you can add tags, priority flagged, you can even add an image and associate it with a reminder.
Yeah.
And I've been going there because it's also great across all platforms. It's very fast on my iPhone. If I want to add an idea and I'm on the go, I can do it on the Mac, and it's just fast. And that comes to some of the limitations for if I want a great Kanban experience, but more robust features, what are the options?
Yeah, everybody says Trello, right? That's where you go if you want a serious Kanban app.
Yes, and Trello is the closest third-party app that did what I wanted to do, but its native Mac app is a web app, basically. It's just loading the web, and so it doesn't feel native, it doesn't feel super fast, and it doesn't have shortcuts actions on the iPhone, which is important to me. And so Trello was
Stephen Robles use an app that doesn't have shortcuts. What? That's
what
possible.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And so Trello was close, but because of those reasons, non-native Mac app is just a web view, no shortcuts actions. That was a no-go.
Yeah.
And the other big ones would be Notion and Craft. And we've kind of been talking about Notion here and there on the show recently.
Yeah.
It's a little too big, a little too bloated, and not fast. So if you're trying to hit that fast mark, it's not there.
Yeah. And I should add that I do some project management, but very little in Notion, and it's team-related stuff where I've got other people working with me.
And that's exactly, I use Notion just when it's collaborative, like for this show, for that show. And then Craft is the other option that's very close right now. It's a beautifully designed app, has a great MCP connector now. It is robust. It does a lot of great things, but it still didn't feel fast enough on the iPhone when I want to just get in and get out. I just want to add an idea to the board where I want it, maybe add some other text or images or attachments and then get out. Craft still wasn't fast enough for me just because it's doing a lot of other things. It really is a large app like Notion per se. So I chose to try and make my own.
Steven, you made an app.
So I made an app. I'm calling it, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Condu.
I love the name. I'm just going to say, when you showed me the name, I'm like, yeah, that's a good name.
Thank you. And it's a play on words. You could say it can do, you could say it can do, whatever you would like.
Yeah.
But I wanted to try and make my own because I wanted the speed of the reminders experience. But some of the limitations of reminders are you can only have one URL attached to a reminder. And if I'm working on a video, I might need to do several. You can't attach things like a PDF. And if I'm doing a video with a sponsor, I want to be able to attach a PDF of whatever they gave me to the task in the Kanban board.
Sure.
So that I want markdown formatting in the note of a task. And Reminders has that notes field, but A, it's not really expandable or collapsible. There's no markdown or rich text. It's very limited to what it can do. And I even wanted things like divider lines in the columns. And so I have these like hacky reminders. I'll show you what mine looks like. And I'll put a screenshot in the show notes. And you could just see all the videos I'm working on. But you can see like I've kind of hacked these little reminders by just putting a bunch of hyphens in the reminder to act as these dividers. Because for me, visually, I like the dividers like in my up next column to show me like these are the ones I need to do next for sure. And then if I have time this week, I'll do the next one, So I kind of have like even my columns are divided vertically. And so I wanted a divider feature. I wanted markdown and rich text in the notes, multiple URLs, the ability to add attachment, all that stuff. So I decided to try and make my own. I wanted it to be cross-platform, my Mac, iPhone, iPad, maybe even Vision OS. I wanted it to have shortcuts actions so I could quickly add tasks through shortcuts, even multiple actions. And that was the other thing about reminders. The reminders action, the add new action, doesn't let you select a column in a list. So you can send a task to a list in reminders, but not a column specifically. And there is a hidden action that is not public yet. You can get some hidden actions in shortcuts if you have the action already in your library. And I will include a shortcut that puts this action on your clipboard, and then you can paste this action in a shortcut where it does have the column option, and you can move a reminder to a column, but it's still not in the create new reminder action. You just can't specify a column. And so I wanted a shortcuts action that did that too.
Yeah.
And I vibe coded it, David. I vibe coded the app, and it turns out it works pretty well. So
yeah, you scratched your own itch.
That's it. So let me show you the app, and of course I'll include screenshots, and it'll be in the App Store if you're listening, if you just want to look at it. But my app, it is Swift UI and Swift everything, all the things, and it is just kind of a normal Kanban style app. You can drag task between columns. You can expand a note, and when you click on a task, you can then write in Markdown. You can use bulleted lists. You can do links. And in that notes section of the task, you can even do things like attach an image, attach a PDF. And those attachments will be saved in the app. Everything syncs over iCloud. And then if you need to open it again, it'll open it in preview or quick look on the iPhone. You can also tag certain tasks. You can have spaces and then projects, so you can organize it hierarchy however you would like. And you can even switch to list view and go back to column view, and it all works pretty well. And it was everything I wanted to. It even has a subtitle field. You can even add like a little image attached to a task, and it'll look like this little cover art that you see on the actual board. And I'm pretty happy with it. I think I'm going to use it as my default app. And yeah, I made the thing.
Yeah, it feels like, because I've been spending time with it, it feels like reminders, but with more adult features, like grown up
Right.
features. Reminders does have real limitations with the text, and you have like just adding Markdown and the ability to add images and PDFs. That I feel like that's really nice.
Thank you. Yeah, and
Yeah.
just like I have a dividers thing where if I want to add a divider in a column, I could do that. You can archive tasks and columns, and then even settings that I would want specifically for my use cases. And so if you download the app, you can go look at the settings, and there's things like you can have multicolor, you can force a single color across the app, you can change the default view to list instead of the Kanban. And one thing, like for me, when I mark or drag a task to the completed column, if there's a sponsor that hasn't paid me yet, I want it to stay on the board. So you have an option to, when you mark a task as completed, it can stay on the board or it can move to the archive little folder. You can hide the counts. So if you want to see how many tasks are in each project or in your today and upcoming list, you can see those numbers or you can hide them. I have like typography options for sizing and line height. There's an iCloud sync. You can turn that on or off and force sync. And you can import reminders. So if you want to import your reminders list, you can actually do that also. And that was kind of a pain as well, as we'll get into how I built this. And I was basically just talking to Claude, asking what was possible. And one of the things I really wanted reminders import to do was pull the URL from a reminder that I might have specified and pull any image that I might have attached to a reminder on import. And I learned that apparently Apple hides some of those fields from apps requesting reminders access. So I can't actually pull images or URLs from a reminder and then put it in my app. System access doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest argument for doing something like this, is just the way Apple's so, they're so precious about sharing this stuff. Even just like to share, do you have a way to link to a specific reminder in your app?
I will add that to my feature requests. I do not have that.
I will tell you, Mac Power Users listeners are going to ask you for that, because it's the hyperlinking is really helpful. Like if you have a specific task and you've got a note on the task somewhere, you click a button, it opens up the task in your Reminders app. That's one of the big advantages of OmniFocus, is they've got really robust linking. You can link to a project, to a task, anything. And like Apple just seems like it has zero interest in ever doing that, even though there's a mechanism inside, because you can share a reminder, but to get to that link is not easy and not fast.
Well, it's annoying because you can drag and drop so many different Apple things. You can drop a mail from the Mail app into a reminder or a note, and it'll like link it somehow. There's a deep link that exists, but it just doesn't surface.
They just don't make it user friendly. The same thing with Apple Mail. Like, why can't I just get a link to this message and try to do that? There is a way to do it.
Really?
Yeah, you got to go to print.
Okay.
To the print menu. That's where it starts.
Okay,
this is
I like this.
Share is link. It's nuts, but they don't want you to do that. But then did you just wake up and say, you know what, I could do better than reminders, or how did this process come down, Stephen?
So what I'd been doing up until now would be using the reminders Kanban board for my tasks, and then use my Notes app, which is Bear, which I still love Bear, and we'll keep using that. I would have a note in Bear for the same video where I would put my outline, my notes, sponsor information. And so anytime I was going to go work on a video, I would have to have two apps up. I would have reminders showing me my list, and then I would have Bear showing me the note. And there was, because like you're saying, there's not an easy way to connect a reminder to a Bear note or vice versa. There is a shortcut you can do to like get the Bear identifier or whatever. And I was like, I just wanted one place where when I'm going to work on videos, I can look at one app, see my entire task in Kanban view, and get all the information I need for the video, including notes that I'm making and outline. And I just decided, I felt like Fable 5 was out there from Anthropic, and I've been hearing from a lot of people how good it is at one-shotting an app or an idea. Basically, like from your first prompt, just getting it right. And we will get into the details of me building it with Xcode because it was not one-shotted. Yeah. But it encouraged me to think, okay, well, let me see if I can actually build this myself, how I would like it. Because that's the thing. If you're not going to use it yourself, there's no reason to put it out there for the world, because it's not, if you don't care enough to use it, or if it doesn't work how you want it to, then, what do we do? So, yeah, and got it to a place where I actually want to use it. I'll still use Bear for things. I'll still use Reminders for things, but this is now my video project management app.
And you really had some minimum, like, viable parameters when you started this. I mean, this isn't just a, single platform app.
It's all the platforms. That was also quite a chore. One, because I thought, let me just see for the heck of it. Can it be Vision OS, iPad, iPhone, and Mac?
Yeah.
And I started by working on the Mac app because it was just easiest to deploy, see the changes, prompt Claude for a change or whatever. But did that, got the iPhone and iPad version working. Vision OS was a chore, like dark mode versus light mode appearance. It kept messing things up. But it's going to be all there. It's going to be native. And the Vision OS app has been approved as well, so it'll all be released.
So you got a task management app on Vision OS before Apple did.
That's right.
Just so we're
because
clear.
Reminders isn't native, right?
No, it's still iPad. Yeah,
it's still the iPad. So yeah, I guess maybe so. Maybe I'll be featured for a task app. But it works pretty well there, and I got the shortcuts actions working how I wanted to, where I can create a new task, add it to a column, and do all of that. And so, and all my non-negotiables, like I was able to achieve them. The markdown, the attachments, all of that. I wish I could have had documents and attachments and images open in app, but that was causing a lot of issues. And because I'm not a developer, I couldn't really diagnose them. And so I said, well, just forget it. Just store it and then have a little nice rich card in the note. And then when you double click it, it'll just open in preview on a Mac or quick look on iOS. And that worked fine. Fine.
All right, Stephen, you had the idea, you made it happen. Let's talk about the process.
So I wanted to also try and get it to work with Siri AI off the bat.
Yeah, okay.
Because I was like, if I'm going to do this, let me try and just do it all the way. So I downloaded Xcode 27 beta on my MacBook Air and started from there. And I have a Claude Max account, like the $100 a month plan, and we'll get into like the tokens and stuff. But in Xcode, I connected the Claude agent. So you can do like the Claude and OpenAI chatbot, or you can use the agent mode, and the agent mode will just do more stuff. So my whole process was open Xcode, new project, multi-platform, titled it Condu. That was it. I went straight to the Claude agent chatbot after that and just started telling it to do things. And it worked really well. Now, with the Claude agent in Xcode, Opus 5, or the Opus model, you can't even specify the number in Xcode. Yeah. Opus was the highest model you could use. You can't choose Fable unless you connect an API key and specify a model name, and it was being weird about that. So I was let me just do it with Opus and see how far I get. And it got me very, very far. I did the whole thing just in that one chat with Claude Agent, asking it to build all the things, and it went very far. And then I got to this one issue, which was dragging tasks across columns. So if I wanted to drag a task from one column to another, if I had to place it immediately underneath a task in order for like the little blue line to appear, otherwise, if I tried to put it in the blank space or the white space underneath it, it wouldn't move.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I want the drop zone to be the whole column. I want you just be able to throw it over to another column. And for some reason, Opus couldn't figure it out. Like, it just was like, I fixed it, and this is what LLMs will do. It's like, got it. It's working, no problem.
Yeah.
I would load up the app, not working. I would tell Opus it's not working. It would say, all right, I got it. So anyway, I went back and forth a few times. And then my friend Jason, who made his app contextually using Claude Code, he was like, listen, just go to Claude Code, point it at the folder for the app, and then just ask it stuff from there on the Fable model. I was like, this is intimidating because I had not done it before, and I wasn't sure what to expect. But it's not hard. I just opened the Claude app, went over to Code. In the little chat window, you select a folder for it to work in, and I selected the app folder, which is just on my Mac, and that folder has all the things. And I set it to Fable 5, and I told Claude Code, just learn everything you need. Just learn everything about this app, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. So just do that first. And it said, got it, I'll be right back. Spent like 10 minutes. It went through all the files that had already been written, and it was like, okay, I got it. What do you want? And I said, here's the drag and drop issue, and here's some other things and bug fixes I need to change. Do it. And so I'm in Claude app using Claude code, telling it to do those things. It takes a little longer, took about 5-10 minutes, and it comes back and says, all right, you're good to go, try it out. And it just fixed it, David.
Yeah.
And from there forward, I've just now my process is I'm going to have Claude code window, the Claude app on my Mac open here. I'm going to have Xcode open right next to it, but I'm just talking to Claude code, and it's just pointed at that folder for the app. It's set at Fable. I'm burning tokens left and right.
Yeah.
But it is working.
Like a crazy man.
I got a message a few prompts in. It was like, hey, just so you know, you're close to the limit. I was like, all right, let's keep going. Let's try and figure this out. Yeah. And then it was like, you're past the limit. Do you want to buy more tokens? I was like, yeah. Here's my card. Just give me more tokens. And like, it would recharge, like $25 and then maybe another $25. So if I count like all the tokens I spend, it's probably been like, with my $100 a month subscription, I probably spent $200 on the extra tokens, which you could wait for things to refresh. You could wait for the next day or your whatever. And I was just like, when you're in the moment and you're like trying to do stuff, you're like, I just keep going.
It's like the games. Like you want more gold coins, right? So you can keep going.
Well, and the other issue was I, again, I'm not a developer. And so I did not, like my process, I did one funny app as like a coffee finder when the ChatGPT coding stuff first came out because I just wanted to try it. Yeah. So now I had to relearn. How do I submit this to App Store Connect? How do I make this a test flight? How do I do all the things? And so once I learned how to do that, I was like, okay, well, anytime I made a fix, I wasn't like running the simulator or deploying on my Mac or iPhone directly. I was just like, I'm going to archive and build it again. I'm going to send it straight to App Store Connect and put it in test flight. And I'm just going to do that.
You're not messing around. Yeah.
I'm not messing around, but
That's
also
not exactly the way it's usually done, Steven,
unorthodox to say the least.
Yeah.
And I realized like how much more time consuming that will be because that process is time. You have to wait for it to package itself and then upload, and then App Store Connect, even the test flight has to process a little bit. But every time I would fix something, I would just be so excited. I'm like, archive and build, upload, do it again. So I have like 20 builds that I probably uploaded in like the span of a couple days because I was just doing the stuff. Yeah. But all that to say, Fable with Claude code pointed at a folder, it's just, to work with the Xcode files like is incredible. And spoiler, I started working on a second app like just this morning.
Oh boy!
And my process for the second app is just
straight to Fable.
Straight to Fable. I just created the project in Xcode, pointed Claude code at that folder, and said I'm just going to talk to Claude code from now on.
Yeah, I vibe coded an app last year just because I wanted some experience with it as well, and also I feel like it gives me good context when we interview developers on the show. It gives me a better idea of what they're dealing with. Yeah. And I need to revisit it, and I want to make it multi-platform. It's just a list of things you say no to. It's a dumb app, but it's something I think worth investigating. And actually, I have some ideas too we can talk about later. But tell me some of the wisdom you got out of this whole process.
Well, and a whole new appreciation for real developers. I will say, like everyone who is a developer writing apps as a living, as a side job, as a hobby, so much respect because I couldn't imagine, like, it is a process, even when you don't know what you're doing and you're relying totally on a vibe coding tool. Yeah. And just incredible work that developers do, especially on more complex apps, because I have tried complex apps in the past, and even Fable and Claude, like it can be troubling.
Sure.
But
you're not going to make things an OmniFocus with Fable. I don't think that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so. But then just little things like I did a test flight, and I sent out a link to some users. I had about 100 beta testers, which was wonderful. And then I immediately started getting feedback and screenshots, and they were like, hey, checkboxes in the Markdown don't check. Like little things like that. Yeah. And I realized on the Mac, when I opened the notes field for a task, it would kind of slide in from the right, and I wanted to be able to swipe on the magic mouse or two-finger swipe on a trackpad to dismiss that window. Yeah. And that behavior wasn't a given. Like it didn't exist. So I had to tell Claude code, like I wanted to dismiss when I two-finger swipe on a trackpad or with the mouse. Yeah. And the dragging behavior, and then notifications. I got a feedback where someone said, I set a date for a task but not a time, and it sent me a notification at midnight because it just fired off at 12 a.m. by default because it was the start of the day.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let me add a toggle for do I want a notification or not? And I had to code into the app, if no time is set, but notification is on, send it at 9 a.m., not midnight. So little things like that, learning along the way. And again, to Fable's credit, I would get like 5 or 6 feedbacks. I got people saying it's crashing when I delete a column, it's doing this and that. I would literally just take all the screenshots of the feedbacks, give it to the chat in Claude Code, Fable 5, and say, hey, can you fix all of these? And it would just go and do it. And it would fix all the bugs. Sometimes I would add a little more context for how I wanted it to be fixed. And it was just did it. Just did it all. And it was really, really impressive. One other thing, too, when submitting the apps. So I was submitting so many builds and probably bugging people. But I was doing these things. Someone asked for the reminders import. Claude Fable 5 was able to do that pretty much on the first go. When you submit an app for final review, so you got the build, you have to add the screenshots, the information for the app, and then you probably hear from developers that the review process could be anywhere between 24 hours to weeks. Like the actual app review process to approve your app to be in the App Store, it can vary widely. And the iOS and Mac app took days. The Mac app took about 1 to 2 days. The iOS app took several days. But what was interesting to me is I had to do this twice because I found a bug and had to resubmit. The Vision OS app was typically, it went from waiting to review to in review to approved in a matter of hours.
Yeah. Not a huge queue over there.
And so to me, I just imagine like one dude just sitting in a room waiting for Vision OS apps to come in and be like, oh, there's another one.
They got a big red light. Guys, we got one.
We got one here. There's a live one. And then, so one of the things I also learned is that, so you have a build of your app. So version 1.0, build 20.
Yeah.
I upload that to App Store Connect. I submit it for review. I found a bug in the Vision OS app, and I was like, oh, how do I submit another build? And I didn't realize what you have to do is in App Store Connect, you have to stop the review process, and you have to say, I reject this build, and then remove the build previous, add the new build, and then submit it again. And in my mind, I'm always like, ugh, if it's in review, it's going to delay it. Or even if it's just waiting for review, is this going to make it longer? Like, do I get farther back in the deli line? Like, do I have to pick another number out of the red thing, you know? Yeah. And the Vision OS one, it was in review, which I assume someone is like actively looking at it. I found a bug. And I was like, I'm sorry, buddy, but I got to reject this one. So I had to reject it while it was in the middle of being reviewed, uploaded a new build, submitted to review again, and then 2 hours later it was approved. So that dude, I at least kept him busy for a couple days.
Yeah, there you go.
But they all went in there, and I even had Claude do the screenshots because I was like, I have a bunch of my data in the app now, and I was like, I wonder if Claude can just do the screenshots. Yeah. And I asked it, hey, can you do screenshots for the app, put a little gradient behind it, make it this resolution for App Store Connect? And David, it just did it. Yeah. It did it for iPhone, it did it for iPad, and Vision OS, which I was like, man, trying to put on Vision OS and take a good screenshot, and usually it's crooked and it's not super clear. I was like, Claude, can you just, I literally would just say, like, hey, can you make these screenshots? And Claude Code was like, yeah, I got it. And it goes off for 10 minutes, gives me 5-7 screenshots, and I'm good to go. And I'm like, this is nuts. And it also made the app icon. So the app icon you'll see when you, in the App Store, if you see the thumbnail for this YouTube video, that app icon was just made by Claude. Like, I gave it an idea. I was like, I want an icon with 3 columns, and it looks like there's cards in the columns. And then it's done. It's just there.
So, Steven, can people get your app?
People can get my app. I did not want to do a subscription because, again, I'm not a developer, and I don't know how long I'm going to work on this thing. So I'm doing it hopefully for the reasonable price of $3. $3 for the app, and that gives you the app everywhere. iPhone, iPad, Mac, Vision OS, and yeah, that's it.
$1 per platform, and Vision for free.
That's what you get, Vision OS for free if you have a Vision. But I was like, I just, it is work, and that's the thing too, is like, again, I'm not a developer, would not compare myself to a developer, but from the start, I started on a Saturday, And I just submitted the final ones like Sunday or Monday, a week later. So it was like 8 or 9 days of an hour or so a day just asking for changes, being specific. I would take screenshots of the app and like mark it up in just the iOS or the Mac markup tool and tell Claude, like, move this over there, like space this out a little more, and just trying to be that project manager for the thing doing the work. And it worked out.
I think that's a fair price. I mean, for something that you're not obviously going to be supporting forever. And it's kind of a thing. If you want a more powerful Kanban app that currently works, go get it for $3. I mean, it's not that much money, and it gives you something for all that effort. So I think you did it right. I want to later when we talk about this whole vibe coding and what it means. I think there's a real issue there to people making subscription-based apps and like more serious apps on a vibe coding basis. That I think you can get out of your depth really quickly. But I think you did it right.
Oh, thank you, David.
So I want to talk about vibe coding in general. And because like there's notes now that the App Store is getting bombed, like more apps are getting through the App Store than ever before because people are vibe coding apps. Teaching this robot assistant field guide course, of course, a lot of people have gone down this road. And I've seen some really remarkable work done by people who are not developers. One guy, for his family, he made like a family app that had the whole family tree in it, and it allows people to scroll through it. You can say, you can see someone and it tells you how they're related to you. Yeah. He's got functions in there where like an older relative can be looking at a family picture, and there's a button at the bottom that says, I have thoughts on this picture, or something like that. He presses the button, and then he can just record to the iPad or the iPhone. Just talk. Oh, this was, back in 1912 when me and Aunt Sally went, out and we forgot to wear pants or something silly. And then in the back end, that recording gets sucked in, transcribed, in his case, translated to multiple languages, added to the app and to the family archive notes, and like really great stuff. Then another guy made a cool time management app where he can go and he can put in different blocks of time. And he can actually pull them with a slider and it automatically adjusts the remaining times. And I know there's apps that kind of do that, but he made one that does a really good job of it. Just last night, I heard from a guy who rolled his own Vestaboard app. I have a Vestaboard in my studio. Yeah. The app isn't that great. He made one and now I got to do that. So that one's on my list because they've got an API key. They've never embraced automation. Now I could build something that runs shortcuts and does a whole bunch of cool stuff with my Vestaboard. And just in general, what I'm seeing is a lot of people are building their stuff out. OmniFocus has announced they're doing an MCP. A lot of people going through my course have already built their own MCP for OmniFocus because you can kind of do that with these AI tools. And if you go back to the original days of the Apple II computer, it didn't have any software for it. And Steve Wozniak was asked about that. He says, how come you didn't have a bunch of software when you released the thing? He said, well, I thought people would write their own software. If you wanted a word processor, you'd make one, which makes perfect sense from someone like Steve Wozniak, but not to the rest of us. And but now we live in an era, Stephen, where somebody like you, who's savvy enough and willing to spend some time on it, can put together a useful application. And what most people are doing, as I'm witnessing, is they're not making them for sale. They're just making them for themselves. They never deploy them to anybody else. Right. But we're all going to have this stack of bespoke applications in the future. The power users, the people who are using Overcast and listening to Mac power users, they're going to start building their own apps. And I think it's kind of delightful.
I think it's delightful. And my love of shortcuts is probably where this came from because Shortcuts was, again, not a developer. I don't know code, but Shortcuts gave me a language that allowed me to build certain automations that really expedited my workflows and allowed me to multiply my efforts and showed me what building a thing could be. Like even just if statements, like learning what to do with an if statement, which is a base level coding thing that you use, and allowed me to then be able to instruct an LLM on to build an app. And sometimes, like, I still build a bunch of shortcuts when I want something that's a shortcut automation, but sometimes you need an app for maybe it's just the storage of data of some kind, or you need a UI because you want to drag cards around the Kanban board. And like the next app, it's dependent on like control center actions and shortcuts actions. And so being able to kind of extend that using an LLM like Fable 5 that is just really good at writing code for these apps, it really opens a world of possibilities. And like you said, it's very easy. You don't need a developer account to deploy an app directly on your Mac, even directly on your iPhone and iPad. It can use all the iCloud sync, and you can never have to submit it to the App Store or App Store Connect or whatever. You can just use it for yourself, and that might be useful enough. That might be reason enough to try it.
Yeah, which gets me back to the point I made last week that this is a crisis of imagination, not of technology. It's like those of us that think about this stuff, when we hit friction points, we need to open our mind to the idea that you can solve the problem even though you're not John Siracusa or Brett Terpstra.
Right. And that was something, the imagination thing is a big deal too, because I had been wanting to try my hand at vibe coding a for real app, and I just wasn't sure what to do. And sometimes the answer is right in front of you. Like the answer was right in front of me. I've been using reminders and Bear and side by side, and like, oh, maybe I can put these two together. And it was just one of those light bulb moments of like, oh, let me see if this is possible. And that's the nice thing too, is using something like Fable 5, if you are verbose enough in what you're telling it, it will give you enough direction to say, I think it is possible, and I can do a bunch of tweaks and I can refine it or whatever, but it'll give you it'll literally load an app on your Mac within 10 to 15 minutes of you prompting it, and you can see for yourself, is this even possible, what I want to do?
Yeah, you get to minimum viable in an hour, but
right,
you probably got a week in making it good.
That's exactly what it is.
I have a couple thoughts about this in the big picture. Like, what does this mean for app developers, that users that are savvy enough can just roll their own solution? And I think there's two categories of apps I want to discuss, productivity and utility. On the productivity category, I think this is a real threat because like you made a task manager app you're selling now for $3 that for a lot of people may wipe out the need for a Trello subscription or the use of Apple reminders. And so for people who make their living making productivity apps, I think it's a real threat. I think the response to that should be that productivity apps need to seriously embrace MCP and interactivity with these with this artificial intelligence stuff. So people can take your app and empower it, kind of like what I intend to do with OmniFocus. I'm going to give OmniFocus wings when I combine it with my Claude install.
Right. One thing I'll say, so I had a friend vibe code an app. It was very good. He's using it. He deployed it. It's on the App Store. And then I saw someone else announce an app. And if you look at them side by side, there are definitely a lot of similarities when it comes to UI and how it looks and even how it functions to an extent. And it's no blame on like someone copied someone else. But I do think as more and more people, like there's data out here, like there's been more uploads to the App Store in the past year than ever before. Like there's just a ton of people submitting apps because of vibe coding.
Yeah.
I do think, well, we need to realize, like what I realize is using Fable and Claude to write my app, that's now all gone back into the machine as training. And so if someone a few months from now says, they don't have to know my app or me at all, they say, I want to build a Kanban-style app for task management, Claude is going to pull from all of its thing that it's done in the past, including the week of instructions that I've been giving it and tweaking things. And so I do think, like you're saying, there's going to be, I think, a flattening of the bottom. So when someone just says, I want an app that does Kanban or project or task management, I think these LLMs who don't have an imagination, they just have context of what people have told it and told it to make, I think there's going to be a flattening. There's going to be a lot of similarities as people build similar apps, which the developers who are great, which like the developer of Things and Fantastical and all the apps that we love, I think what makes them great is the differentiation of their voice, their tone, their style that comes through the apps. That is something that won't be replaceable just yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that there's a trust with a developer. Like the Omni Group was been writing apps for the Mac forever. And they were on the Next platform before then. So they're probably the most historically steeped in what it makes a good application. So when you get an app from them, I think you're getting something that's done properly. Whereas vibe-coded apps, I mean, even Steven, you don't entirely understand your app, right? I mean, you couldn't tell you each line of code means. So there's risk there. Like if you're doing anything that involves private data, I would not use a vibe-coded app at all because I think even if the developer didn't have ill intent, it's very easy for there to be a lot of problems there once you start syncing data. But I do think that, for unique problems, there's going to be a lot of people just roll their own solution. And I'm witnessing it, and like I said, all the ones I shared with you are not apps that went in the App Store. It's just people who made something to solve a problem for themselves. Now the second category that I want to talk about is utility apps. And to me, that's like the automation enablers like Keyboard Maestro and, Alfred and, all the launchers and things like that. I don't think the AI kind of boom really hurts them at all. If anything, it makes them more useful as you start tying things together. But I do think the productivity apps should get ahead of this, and the good ones should really give us ways to use the AI tools with them so we don't feel compelled to go roll our own. Because honestly, I don't want to spend a week putting together a Kanban app. I don't, I just don't, I get, and for you, it was more than just making this app. It was an experience and a learning thing. But, I think a lot of us want just the stuff that's out there to be more friendly with this type of technology.
And I think there are some apps and ideas, like I think of Overcast, which so many of you are using. And we had Marco on the show just a couple months ago talking about his process. Like, well, listen, an LLM can't walk into a data center and install 48 Mac Minis and wire them up for transcription. Now, it might be able to do other things like, enable transcription via API for a service that you have to pay for or whatever. But I tried myself to maybe roll a podcast app about a year ago. The tools weren't as good then, but I quickly ran into the limitations of, this has to like call out to third-party services and the storing of downloaded episodes, and like it was very complicated. Now, one of the things that I might think about for my own app, Condu, is collaboration, which, like you said, this is why we use Notion for collaboration. And I before I even asked Claude about it, I already know that would be a huge lift, because where does this data get shared? Are accounts being created? Where do those accounts get stored? There probably needs to be a bucket somewhere, AWS or Cloudflare or others. Now, I have asked Claude to help me build stuff in Cloudflare, and I have Cloudflare workers, which I don't even know. I didn't know what those were like 6 months ago, but now I have several. I have some that generate RSS feeds for me. I have several that power my website now, and it's pretty amazing what it can do. And Claude walked me through all of that. And depending on your comfort level with this, you can, and I did, for iCloud sync for my app. I wasn't exactly sure what to do because you have to go to like iCloud.developer.apple.com and you have to deploy things. So I turned on Claude Computer Control, and I said, listen, Claude, I'm logged in. I just need you to click around and figure this out, because I wasn't sure what to do. And I watched Claude use my computer and click all the things on the website it needed to do. Now, I don't like leaving that on and doing that all the time as like computer control. But you could do that, I assume, and have it, create what it needs to in AWS and Cloudflare. But I don't think it is there yet. And I think apps like Overcast, things that require accounts, and many other different use cases, those are still a little bit of ways off, I think.
Yeah. And my general advice is, scratch your own itch with this stuff. Have fun with it. If you're going to put it out to third parties like Steven's doing, make it something relatively simple. I mean, Steven, your app is pretty simple, but it's really good at what it does. And it does things that, frankly, the other apps that are out there don't do. I've actually gone looking for Kanban apps multiple times over the years, and there's really never been good ones. I think you actually are scratching an itch for a lot of people.
Well, thank you. That's like you're saying. I think something simple where it's I like this thing. I like reminders Kanban view.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. Markdown, notes, I want it to do attachments, and I want it to do this. And that kind of 1 or 2 degrees away from an already good thing for your personal use case, I feel like has a place for it. And, I don't think this is Sherlocking anything, and Reminders Kanban View might be good enough for a lot of people. It was for me for a long time. But if you can make something, like you're saying, that personal productivity software, if you can tweak something where it just jives a little bit more with how you think and how you work, that can go a long way to just making your entire workflow smoother.
Yeah, I've got a couple experiments I want to run. I definitely think I want to build a Vestaboard app now that I saw somebody did one. And I want it to be really cool. I just haven't decided what that means. Like, what if it lit up and gave me a countdown to a podcast recording, or if I'm going out, it tells me the weather and before I leave my next appointment. And I think there's some really cool stuff I can do with it, but I have to build in real hard dead man switches. Like if I'm recording, it can't go off and things like that. So I think it'd be unique to me. I wouldn't really share it, but I think it would solve a lot of problems. Another one on my list is I want just a killer status board app on my Apple TV. And I have bought every single one in the Apple TV App Store, and none of them are any good. And like that's a problem. But it's unique to me. Like I would give it data sources that are just for me. Kind of getting back to the old Panic status board app that they abandoned.
Right. That's got me. Now I'm curious now, David. I might want to try a third app this week. I might start vibe coding a Apple TV one, because you could do that too. And Apple TV is again one of those platforms where there are great apps out there, but not a lot of great apps. Yeah. And the hooks that Apple provides, like being able to import reminders just by giving access to it, or calendars, it does allow you to make an app that builds on or differently than Apple's stock apps, but features that are important to you, whatever that might be.
Well, I'm curious to see what you do next, Stephen. Gang, it's called Can-Do or Can-Do, if that's your inclination.
Whichever you'd like.
Stephen doesn't care what you call it.
No, I don't.
But it's a great little app. I've been playing with it. I tried to break it. I couldn't.
That's good.
You've done good work.
Good. And, it's a lot of feedback, because it was, did break for a lot of people. And that's, again, learn as developers already know this, the importance of that beta testing of you got to see you got to put it out for at least some testers, because then you'll hear about all the things that break. And so I did.
And kind of getting back to my idea of a status board, which is a concept I love, I feel like your app, full screen on a big Mac screen, where you just got a list of everything you're doing that you can swipe into, see what's doing, move stuff around, add some notes, and swipe away and get to work. I think that's a pretty good workflow. Thank
you. And even just one little feature too, you don't think about all the things you have to tell the app. I want it to do X, Y, and Z. I'm accustomed in a lot of apps where if I do Command plus, that everything just kind of zooms in, and then Command minus it zooms out. Like I do this in Safari sometimes. And I just did it naturally, just muscle memory, when I was using the app on my Mac. And I was like, oh, that doesn't work. So I went back to Claude and said, hey, make the Command plus, Command minus, do this and do that. And now you can do that in the Can-Do. So you can make it real big. So if you want it full screen on your Mac, Command plus it to increase the font size if you want, and everything just resizes accordingly.
Nice. And it's a native app, so you get all those advantages as well.
Native app, native even on Vision OS, if you would like to do that. And it works. I strapped on Vision Pro and was dragging cards to the different columns, and it all works.
I feel like Vision OS is actually a pretty great place to handle Kanban boards when you think about it.
Yeah, and it's nice to actually have a native Vision OS app versus an iPad app, because a lot of apps that I still use, like Bear and Shortcuts, there is no native Vision OS app. So, yeah.
Yeah, see, that's a scratch. I type a lot in Vision OS. I do a lot of writing in Vision OS, and I use Apple Notes because nobody will put their app over. I just,
You could vibe.
I could. Or I could just beg Greg Pierce to move drafts again.
Do that. And the last thing I wanted to mention, as I've been doing this vibe coding stuff, I've been having to say long things, give long instructions to an LLM.
Yeah.
And so I finally got serious about WhisperFlow.
Okay.
And I was
what was your experience?
Well, when I finally put it on my Mac Studio, the Mac I'm working on all the time, and I do the keyboard shortcut, I can hold the button and talk, or button plus space bar, and it'll just dictate. It is very nice because when I started vibe coding the second app, I just started the microphone. I just talked for like 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
And it was perfect. It's better than the built-in dictation. And I don't know how much I'm going to use it on my iPhone as much, but on my Mac, especially when dealing with these prompts, I totally see the value and will probably keep doing it.
Yeah. To me, the problem on the phone is you got to swipe because of the security thing. It jumps over to Whisperflow. Then you have to swipe on the bottom back to your app.
Yeah.
And like just quick dictation for like a text message or even a note, I will just do using the built-in dictation. But when I want to go deep, and sometimes I actually dictate quite a bit on my mobile device, then I will do the swipe. But it's got to be swipe worthy.
It's got to be swipe worthy. All right, well, Dave, let's talk about some offline experiences and more power users. You ready?
Well, Steven, congratulations on getting this thing out there. Again, go check it out. Throw Steven $3 for his work and try his Kanban up. It's honestly really useful. I can't get into Trello. I've subscribed a few times and I never stick with it. This app, I think, might stick around for me. So I'm going to be bugging you about that. It wasn't purely hypothetical when I said I would like links directly to the individual test, even.
I'll work it in version 1.1. I want to start working on it.
We'll call it the Sparky feature. And congratulations on getting it out. And I love that it's on Vision Pro. So I think I'm in. Go check it out, gang. We got links in the notes. And think about this, because I do think we're entering a period where Wozniak's original idea that people can make apps to solve their own problems, I think that is upon us. Thank you to our sponsors this week, Squarespace, NetSuite, and 1Password. We're going to talk about offline experiences and phones next, and more power users. If you haven't signed up, go sign up. It's more power users. You can find that at relay.fm/MPU. It's the ad for extended version of the show. We're one of the few shows, if you sign up, that you get a monthly-ish bonus episode. And I know a lot of you listen to it. We've been looking at those numbers. They're really fun. So we'll see you next time, gang.